I want to know, when was the seed of design planted? Was it planted back when you were probably in school? Was it planted in college? Because you also started freelancing in college. What is at one point when you should actually tangibly follow your passion? Because I've seen a lot of times and a lot of people, they say, okay, I love, let's say, filmmaking, something which I do. But then 1 year later, they realize, oh, this was better off as a hobby. And this eventually is like, in a couple of years even, will quickly replace you, and you won't be able to sustain a living out of it.
Well, that all depends on how you define being a specialist. Specialist is about having very deep knowledge about one particular thing. That's when you call that you are a specialist in that.
Calm down before you stress up the groove. The energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking to? Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I stand tall like I'm on my tiptoes.
If you become a really good designer, how do you know if you're getting better after a point of time? जब तुम बहुत अच्छे बन गए हो. How do you get jobs in all these top startups like Swiggy, Zomato, Cred? What does it take to stand up there? What does it take to be a great designer? We answered a lot of questions like these in this episode, in this very, very special episode of the CMTC show. If you're a designer, if you are an aspiring designer or a freelancer, Sapta from Swiggy is an insane mentor and a teacher to have. I have learned a lot from him, not just from his workshops and his YouTube channel, but now from him on a live one-on-one conversation. I hope you enjoyed this one. पूरा को पूरा सुनना, skip मत करना. Definitely every single point, every single answer has something very, very valuable. Like, comment, share as always, and subscribe कर दो channel को. Now on to the episode. Hey Saptarshi, welcome to the CNTC show. How are you doing?
Thanks for inviting me for this, Ayush. I think it feels great to be a part of this. I think it's been a long time I have been part of a show like this. I've been warding off all these people who have been reaching out, but I think it's good to be back.
Awesome. I'm so excited for this one, particularly when we were internally having this discussion. I told the team that I'm going to be talking to you, and they were so pumped because every designer knew of you. They're like, oh, we've seen his YouTube videos, we have seen his Instagram, and somehow they were part of your tight-knit community is what I'd like to call your audience. And it was so excited and so empowering to just realize, okay, I'm going to get a chance to speak to you and probably gather some information, knowledge, and pass it on to the audience on how to build great design teams, how to even get started with design. So really, really excited to have you on the show, man.
Thank you. I'm really flattered to know that folks out there in your team also know about me. That's wonderful.
There's this really like a fun question which we ask everybody who comes on the show. Describe yourself in just 2 words. What would those 2 words be?
Simple human.
Simple human. The kind of things that you're doing right now, not at all simple. Like you are a teacher, content creator, you're taking courses, Swiggy, but
those are just man-made words. Those are just man-made words. Anyone can call themselves teacher or creator or something.
Why do you call simple? Like what's the thought behind it?
Because I feel I have a pretty simple life. I like interacting with people. I'm an extrovert person. You're probably getting to know I'm a talkative guy as well. So I like meeting new people. I like traveling. I like talking to people. And that's what I started doing. I never thought that, I would evolve as a content creator or a teacher or something. And then when I started interacting with people, as in when I started growing in this field of design, I started speaking things which made sense to people. They ended up learning a thing or two. So what started off just as a networking, I saw, okay, I like doing this, so let's just go ahead, and some people are getting benefited.
Let's rewind a little bit. So you are at the core an engineer. You're from IIT. I want to know, when was the seed of design planted? Was it planted back when you were probably in school? Was it planted in college? Because you also started freelancing in college. Start kaise hua tha? How did it start?
It started, interesting story. It started way back when I was in school. I was in 7th or 8th standard when my parents got me the first computer, the desktop computer. It was an assembled one. And, I also had a printer. So back then, my work was, of course, my parents had spent a lot of money to get me that. Not everyone had a computer back then, right? So I wanted to make use of it. Like make use in a way which someone without a computer wouldn't be able to do. And one of them was to make birthday cards or New Year cards. So I tried to explore that. How can I create birthday cards or New Year cards using my computer? And I spoke to the people who sold us the computer. It's a local shop. I was born and raised in Assam, one small town out there. Those guys told me that there's a tool called Photoshop using which you can make cards. They had no clue how to use it. They said, we can get you the tool somehow, but you'll have to figure out how it works. So they came and installed Photoshop in my system. Didn't have internet, of course. And there I was. 11-year-old guy. Okay, maybe I was slightly older than that. And I had a computer, Photoshop, and a printer. So I was left to myself. Trial and error is what taught me. So I did actually started manipulating pictures or creating shapes and stuff, and I was to print them out and then give it to my friends and all, and be that cool guy because I could give printed cards, So that's how it started, actually. That's how it started. Just as a fun thing, just as a show-off thing. But then when I went to IIT, I saw that that's a whole new world. Like, there were people who were doing it very seriously. There were seniors who had been doing graphic design for quite some time. There were tons of resources available in the LAN which I could download and watch and learn. There were seniors who were forever ready to help us out or teach us out or anything. So that's the time when, I took things to the next level. I started learning a lot of things. Also, I got exposed to internet. Of course, I started using internet before as well. But then that's when, I actually utilized internet to learn something, new skills and stuff. So I think all these things led me into believing that I like design, right? But even then, I never thought that I would take it up as a career because I thought there's no scope, right? I'm from a middle-class Indian family and I'd have to do something good in my life. So that's how I thought. I thought that, I would never get paid well as a designer. I would never get the respect as a designer. So these were the thoughts which I had in my mind. So all through my college life, I never thought that I would do it professionally. It was only, 1 year into my first job, which I got from my campus placements, I discovered that, UX design was a thing and I could perhaps get into it. And that's how I got into it. So there was no one moment which made me realize, like design is my thing. I knew that, electrical engineering is not something that I would want to do all my life, right? It's good. I like it, but no, I can't keep doing it all my life. I thought that, I would be a business person. Maybe, I would do an MBA and, start doing something cooler. That's what I thought. But then design happened.
Okay, there's this major talk in the last 4-5 years, especially if you spend time on Instagram and YouTube, that you should follow your passion. You should definitely go where your heart takes you. There's a huge amount of, if I had to sum it up in a word, is PR. Ki go and follow your passion and this will happen, that will happen. And all these success stories, there's always survivor bias whenever we are talking about these stories. I want to understand, what is at one point when you should actually tangibly follow your passion? Because I've seen a lot of times and a lot of people, they say, okay, I love, let's say, filmmaking, something which I do. But then 1 year later, they realize, this was better off as a hobby. Shouldn't have taken this bad decision. How do you gauge, how does a college student gauge? Because there's as you said, most of us come from middle class families. There's always that pressure of making money, right? You can't do something which is too unstable. How does somebody in college figure that out?
There's a simple answer to it. You don't. You can't figure that out. It's as simple as that. Maybe I see a lot of people who want to get into design these days. Do you think, they really love it? Nope. Most of them see this as a lucrative profession, which can potentially pay you well. And for something, you wouldn't need to code because a lot of people are scared of coding. They don't like to write programs, and they know that you would get same kind of money, you would get same kind of respect and everything else that comes with a coding job, but then you won't have to write code. So, that feels like a very good alternative to people. And that's the reason I personally feel a lot of people want to get into design these days. Now, this is in 2021 when design has already established itself as a good profession in the industry, right? Not completely, but at least the people like you and I probably know about it, right? But you cannot guarantee that for something which has not yet established itself as a stable thing or as a good thing, right? So when I was designing in college, I knew that I liked it, but I never thought it could be my career because it wasn't established. Maybe I was passionate about it. Maybe I loved it. But then practicality strikes. I never know that this is going to work. Can this pay my bills? Can this make me rich? Can this enable me to fulfill my dreams? Whatever, right? I wasn't sure about them. So even though I was passionate, I knew that this passion alone is not going to take me ahead. I'll have to keep doing something else, which I like, moderately like, and this can go on as a passion or this can go on as a hobby, is what at least I thought, right? And that's why, even though I figured out that electrical engineering is not something that I like, I figured out that maybe, management is what I like more. I thought that I would take up a managerial job or I would do an MBA, which would be my source of income. And then maybe, design is something that I would keep doing in the back and just get fun out of it. But then things changed, and maybe I was lucky that something which I liked, something which I feel I was passionate about, or I am passionate about, potentially could pay me as well, because the industry had changed that way. Now, that doesn't happen with everyone, right? Now, you could be a passionate filmmaker in college, but for it to sustainably keep paying you consistently, you need to fly at a very different level, right? It's not possible maybe right away, right? You know how tough it is, because since you're doing the same thing. So that's why, it takes a lot of effort and confidence for you to take one of these things as your primary source of income. Although I have known a lot of people, when they are young, they want to try it out. They feel that, okay, what are the odds? Even if this doesn't work out, 2 years later, I can always come back and maybe get a job. So with that hope, many people start, and some people succeed, but most of them do not, and they come back, like you have said. So I don't think there's a way to find that out, honestly, unless, you are an antaryami and you can predict what is going to happen in the future.
Do you think like a job where you are consistently being creative, or trying to be creative for that matter, can burn you out in the long run?
It might. But if you really like something, even though it burns you out a bit, but you enjoy the process. You start enjoying the process so much that the possibility of it burning you is lesser. Not nil, I would say. It's lesser, because you also enjoy the process. And one good thing about any creative profession, I would say, the end results are very satisfying. So even though, the process had been very hectic and you are like almost at the verge of burning out, even though you enjoy the process, but then when you actually arrive at the end result, it's so satisfying that, it heals everything else. So at least that's how it happens to me, right? So yeah, I think that's what I feel. It has the potential to burn you out, but it can also be very satisfying, which can heal everything.
How do you avoid the burnout? Like, I'm sure this question must come to your mind, at least, like it must have come.
Burnout usually happens when you keep doing the same sort of thing again and again. It happens usually to people who are, say, working for a company like me. It's the same product, it's the same feature, it's the same thing that you're continuously working days and days, months after months, trying to make it better or something. It can get a little hectic or boring, or you may face burnouts after some time. So one thing is, you need to keep fueling it with newer things, right? Even if your, say, day job is not giving you that opportunity because, there are some restrictions, maybe you take up something else. Think of something, your pet project or something, start thinking or start building with a friend or a colleague. So those are the things which helps you break the monotony, because then you don't feel like I'm doing the same thing again and again, because in the breaks or during the holidays or weekends or at night, you're actually working on something else. Your mind is going towards a few things. So it kind of creates a nice deviation, which prevents you from burning out from the otherwise monotonous life of yours.
This is one question which has always fascinated me and troubled me at the same time, and it goes for every creative out there, from a Nolan to people setting us, right? So I love your designs, right? And sometimes I feel initially in your career, when you start, you can measure the growth of, okay, let's say in terms of video, probably you used to shoot your videos on a phone. Now you have moved to a camera. There's a lighting setup, right? So you can track the growth. Okay, my video quality is getting better. There are technicalities which you take care of. But there's a point of time when you hit like a glass ceiling in terms of technicalities. You hit a glass ceiling in terms of the number of tools you can learn. How do you track your design growth? Matlab, how do you know if you, Saptarshi, as a designer, is getting better, like probably now?
Well, I can answer this question as a content creator, as a YouTuber, and also as a designer who's working for a corporate or a company. Well, let me tell you the latter first, right? How do you measure the growth of a designer, right? What I've seen is, as you grow as a designer, when you're working for a company, your ability to do things beyond design actually adds to your growth. Now, after a while, like you rightly said, you won't be left with any tools, or you won't be left with any new techniques that is left for you to learn because you've already maybe learned or mastered or have gone through the process. It's about things beyond. Can you be a thought leader now? Can you maybe assimilate everything that is around you and make strategic decisions at a very high level? Can you understand a bit of product? Do you understand what are the business needs? And as a designer, you're expected to know the user needs. So can you blend all these things together and come up with decisions which is win-win-win for everyone? So I think that's what determines if you are a good designer, if you're a great designer, and that would determine if you would grow, right? And growing could mean you taking up bigger and more important responsibilities, or promotions and climbing up the stairs and all. So I feel over time, to sum up, over time it is about knowing things beyond design.
Are you a specialist or a generalist right now?
I think I'm a generalist. And so are most of the people that you would say. Although many people might claim that they're specialist, but I feel that everyone's at best a generalist. It takes a lot of time for people to be specialist, and maybe we haven't spent that much time, at least in the Indian industry, for people to claim themselves as specialist, right? That's what my personal opinion is. I could be totally wrong. But yeah, I'm a generalist. And over time, maybe certain aspect of all the things that I know or have mastered over time, I would start seeing some sort of spikes, which might end up being some sort of specialty in me. So maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, I can say that, hey, you know what? Yes, maybe I'm specialist in this. But as of today, I'm barely 6 years into this game. I don't think I'm a specialist. I'm a generalist.
When you're talking about how eventually you have to start understanding different parts of design, right, which are not just the actual software designing, but also understanding product, business, users, all of that. There's this really cool book called the Victory Project, which talks about the T. It's essentially forming a T in your life. So you become a generalist, which is horizontal growth, and then eventually you have to figure something out and be a specialist there, right? Because generalists, it's an interesting debate. I mean, there's no right or wrong here, but I really resonate with the idea that you start off as a generalist, probably find a niche, and then become like a T model, because specialists are really, really highly valued at what they do, and generalists can then is like stars on your shoulder, right? You know the job, and then stars on your shoulder is something like a. Eventually, where do you stand in this debate? Eventually, would you want to probably opt for a T structure? Would you want to opt for just a specialist or a generalist in nature?
Well, I have been fiddling with a couple of these things as well. Yes, I have read about this T structure, the T-shaped skills that you've spoken about. So, I think slightly beyond that. I have tweaked one of the very popular saying, which goes, a jack of all trades and master of none, right? That's what is the common one. And these days you would see many people saying jack of all trades and master of one. But what I feel is all of us should be jack of all trades and master of a few. I think that's what the age is. That's what 2021 or the years beyond is going to be, because it's not enough to be a master of one thing, is what I feel. You need to be a master of at least 2 or 3 things. And you need to be a jack of everything, which is nothing but the generalist, the base that you started off as a generalist. That would take care of the base of the T that you've spoken about. Just that it's not one spike, but multiple spikes is what I'm talking about, right? So keep learning the adjacent stuff. If you do this, do the things which are right before or right after what you have been doing all the time. And that would help you to expand your horizon. And over time, you will form the depth. You will see multiple things growing and forming the base of the T in case of one or multiple ones, if you follow the way that I'm suggesting, right? So jack of all trades and master of some is what my mantra is.
So there's like a premise to why this question really fascinates me, is because like all the probably like the below average, not to demean a designer, but people who are just starting out as designers, probably just 6 months into the job, I feel eventually this section is highly replaceable. There are websites which they make a logo in 5 seconds, you enter some information. And I'm not saying that logo is great, but for an SME, that's good enough for them to get started, for them to not spend money on a design, and eventually all these tools are coming in which would help you probably not pay an Adobe, right? Canva came in, really disrupted the market. Now people are I receive CVs which says Canva designer, their job is XYZ, and then eventually there's a skill called a Canva designer. So this is why this is fascinating, that if you're not a specialist, do you think like AI will eventually, and this eventually is like in a couple of years even, will quickly replace you, and you won't be able to sustain a living out of it.
Well, that all depends on how you define being a specialist. Specialist is about having very deep knowledge about one particular thing. That's when you call that you are a specialist in that. What I feel is AI can replace some parts of the things, especially the things which are our computers or machines. Let's use the word machines right now because AI gets really complicated and we don't really know where AI is going to go in the next couple of years. So there are certain things which machines can do, and there are certain things which machines cannot do, right? Or won't be able to do even in the near future. That's what I see it. So I don't think, even if someone is not a specialist, right, a machine can come and replace them completely. A machine can come or a computer can come and make their lives easier is what I feel. But complete replacing, it's not going to happen. Of course, if someone just knows a couple of tools and hence they're calling themselves a generalist, in my opinion, they're probably not even complete designers because knowing just a tool is not enough. So yes, that person can be replaced. You probably will have a machine which will remove the need of a person to operate Canva. Maybe Canva will operate itself and you just put some inputs and it gives you an output, like you have said, the logos and all, right? So a person who is only specialized or only knows how to use the tool, yes, they will get replaced. But the moment that person is also capable of understanding what you're going to do with this tool, when you say a logo, what is this logo intended to do? What kind of company does this logo belong to, right? Or who are the target audiences? And a couple of other, behavioral things, which probably is tougher for a computer to understand. When that person also applies all of them, then that person becomes slightly irreplaceable, right? A computer cannot come and simply replace this person because some of these things are probably not within the scope of any computer program. So that's where I believe, just a tool operator will certainly get replaced. But the moment you do things beyond that, even if you're not a specialist, probably won't be replaced, at least in the near future. That's what I would like to believe.
Have you tried copy.ai or any other GPT-3 tool, which...
I haven't tried, but yes, I have seen the demonstrations. Some of those look really scary. It makes me feel like, okay, is it just going to go away? But what I see is, even if those tools come, it's a person who is giving all those input, right? So maybe things will narrow down to how good an input can you give so that your output is in the desired way, right? So if a person is able to think and give the right set of input, then you're essentially the computer or the tool is making your lives easy, but there's still a human involved. So that's where I feel the world is going to go, right? Like think about codes as well, right? When people write programs or people write code, it's essentially doing some sort of a function. Now, you can always say that the computer is giving the output, but the person is actually writing that input. And that's, of course, it hasn't got its own syntax, and it's not the kind of language that you and I speak. But still, there is a person who is doing all those inputs, right? So I feel even all those tools, those fancy tools, which is creating the interface of Instagram within a jiffy, I feel it's just going to make the lives of designers easier, and someone will still have to think and give the inputs right.
Going to ask a very vague question. What's a good design?
Well, I will also give you not a vague answer, a very cliched answer. I'll give you a very cliched answer. And the reason I give this cliched answer because I truly believe in it. I think a good design is something which solves problems. Okay, let me give you another thing to it. A really good design is something which is invisible. You will never feel that something has been designed, but it magically works for you, right? So someone who's using that design or someone who's experiencing that design will never even think that, there was a person involved or there were a group of people involved in designing it in a certain way. It'll be so seamless that you'll never even think about it. Like, it could be as simple as maybe your toothbrush. Have you ever wondered at how your toothbrush is designed? We probably don't, because, it simply works. You just put it inside your mouth, you start moving your hands and it does the work. Or if we go digital, maybe a simple messaging app or a WhatsApp. Have you ever thought what is so great about it? You feel that, it's just a normal thing. It just like any other chat app, it just works. It works because someone has actually thought about it and designed it in a way so that you don't even have to worry about some of these things. The way you imagine, it just works that same way. That's, in my mind, is a great design. And I would like to call it invisible, although it has an interface. But you never think that it has been designed well so that it's working for you. It just feels very automatic.
Interesting. I want to know your thoughts on the entire art versus design. Okay, so I go to a Dribble, I go to a Behance. The top projects I see are beautiful. Like I love how they look. And then I try to dig deep, and when we do whatever design job we do, we always look for references when we're making the look board or the mood board. And I see all these references and they look so good, and even a client would be like, amazing, I love this thing. But then when you try to see the usability, there's always some form of fault. You can't read the text. It's too aesthetic. There are fonts that you can't comprehend, but they look really good. How do you draw a line? Because at the end of the day, here's just adding to this question, because we work on a B2B front and we have to also impress the clients. The client has to feel wowed, right? Because if you start giving reasoning to everything, it becomes like a really tough discussion. So you also have to wow them. How do you find like a balance there?
Well, first of all, I love both these platforms that you've spoken about. I used to be very active on Dribble at one point of time. I mean, that reminds me, I haven't posted on Dribble for quite some time. That's not really a portfolio place. I don't think Dribble is a portfolio place. Dribble is not even a place where you show off your UX skills or something. It's a place where you show off your creativity. Okay? So yeah, I know creativity is a heavy word. It's about showing off what you can think, which others cannot. That's why you will see a lot of concepts, a lot of things you could never imagine, and all these things. It's because people are essentially showing off. Hey, you know what? When you click on this burger can come and sit inside a packet and wrap itself. And then when you click on another button, it falls into a scooter and mimics as if it's going to get delivered to you. Now that is something is probably not so practical. I'm not saying that, it's not possible. It is possible to do it. Why not? But it's probably not so practical. But if someone could think about it, connecting it with the real life and narrate a story, it's because they are creative, right? So that's what people show off on Dribble. And if you see the other way, if you say that, okay, what purpose is it serving? I think you have already answered about it. It's serving the purpose of wowing people. Clients do get impressed by them. People do get impressed by maybe the visual skills or the animation skills of people out there, and lots of people get hired over those platforms. Does it mean that they do very bad job when they get into those companies or with those clients? Not really. They are doing quite good job out there as well. Maybe they know practicality, they know the fundamentals of UX and everything else that we talk about. They also know how to make practical designs, but they chose not to show them off on Dribble because they're not fancy, right? So it's about knowing which platform is what. Similarly, if I write, say, a Medium post where things are slightly more serious, where people expect you to go into the process and get into the details of what your thought process were, it's all practical. There, if I, just go and slap something which is so impractical, maybe people wouldn't like it because the platform itself is such. Similarly, if I make carousel posts on Dribble and start writing about the process, no one's going to give a damn about it because the platform is not meant for that. So just like we design UX, just like designing UX, we keep our users in mind, we keep our platform in mind. It's the same here. When designers are showing off, they need to keep the platform in mind. Which platform is it? And then make content accordingly, right? Yeah. In YouTube, you would post maybe a 30-minute long video. You wouldn't do that on TikTok. You're not even allowed to, right? Because the platforms are different, the audiences are different.
Makes sense. And then how do you gauge so you now run a team, right? You're on a slightly more managerial position as well. There's a team that you also manage. How do you pick designers then? Like, do you ever look at this creativity side of them, or do you just try to find, okay, what makes material sense? When I say material, of course, what makes utilitarian sense when I bring them on board?
Well, the first impression can be created by either of those things. If you're just simply talking about the first impression, something that would strike me, should I have the next round of conversation with this person or not? That can come from either of these two directions, right? But then if you talk about finally on what basis am I hiring, it has to be a mix of both. It has to be a mix of both, unless I have a very, 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 very specific reason or a very specific project that I'm hiring for, for something. Maybe I'm just looking for animations and nothing else. Maybe, I will ignore the fact that someone is not that great at thinking or doing something else, right? But even in that case, it's wrong to say. I would see how good is the person at storytelling using animations or visuals or anything. If they're good at that, if they can come up with new ideas, if they can come up with innovative and creative solutions to the problem that I throw at them impromptu, then yes, why not? I would surely hire them. But if you're asking about, a BAU product designer, someone who would design the Swiggy app, flows and stuff, I would see a mix of both of them.
Interesting. I see this new thing happening in the startup ecosystem. There's this PhonePe.design Instagram page. There's, I think, Swiggy design as well. There is Cred design. I never see Cred developers. I never see, now I know Instagram is a visual platform, but I also don't see Cred video. But I do see Cred design. I do see Swiggy design. There's a sense of, I read a lot of blogs, how to set a design culture. What is this all about? And then how do you actually go about forming like a nice culture? What this nice culture even equate to?
Oh, well, we'll get to the culture part maybe, but let's talk about the Instagram thing and, pages across that you're talking about. I feel all these are attempts to connect and reach out to other like-minded people. And when you talk about designers, it's about reaching out or connecting with other designers. You would want other designers to look at your life as a designer in your company, PhonePe, Swiggy, Flipkart, anywhere. Now, the reason why you don't see probably developers is because they dwell in different sort of places. Like for a fact, I know there are large developer communities, maybe much larger than the design communities that you see on Dribbble, Instagram, and all these places, over GitHub and maybe Reddit and some other places where, they go and post their stuff. And exactly the same thing. People come and comment, just that they're not visual. They're not social network platforms like Instagram and all, which is also used by a lot of other people. That's why you discover. Maybe a developer is also on Instagram, although they don't use it very often, but they're still saying that, okay, there's a page called Swiggy Design. There's a page called PhonePe Design, right? But if you talk about the places where the developers dwell, where they show off their work, maybe people like you and I wouldn't go there so much because it's a very specialized thing. So yeah, the answer to that, what I feel is such communities exist almost for every kind of role. Just that we do not know about them because they're way too specialized or they are way too detailed for us to even make sense of anything. Right? So yeah, I think that's what it is. And culture, culture of course is a word that we hear very often out there. I believe culture is formed by people, right? It's the people who define what kind of stuff that happens, right? So culture is what, if I were to compare it with families, as a kid, when you're at school, you'd always know that, your certain friends' parents are really strict. They won't allow, them to watch TV after 9 p.m. or they must have their dinner at 8:30 and by 10 they need to be in the bed, or, they are not allowed to do this, that and stuff. So that's culture in a way. Whereas in some other friends' family, you would see that parents are pretty much chill. When the kids' friends come over, they also come and have a chat with them. And, it's okay once a while to stay awake till late and watch that movie or go hang out with friends and all. So that's again a different sort of culture. Does it mean one is bad parenting and the other one is good parenting? Not necessarily. These are just two different styles. Maybe this style works for some sort of people. The other style works for some other kind of people, right? But what is important here is the difference. It determines what kind of character that entire company is, if you were to personify it. So I think that's what culture is, right? And since different companies or different teams have different sort of things that they do, it is important for them to show off what they actually do so that they give a glimpse of how their culture is to the rest of the people so that, maybe they can potentially hire some people or make other people curious about their own team so that something can happen in the future together, right? It could also be a way where you attract talent, where people get envious of you that, oh, that's one great team. They're doing some great stuff. They're having a lot of fun and all. So yeah, there are many reasons why all these things are done. I feel it is important. I feel it is important. It's the same reason why even personal branding is important, right? See, you're doing this podcast with me, but not any of my other 24 colleagues. Why? Does it mean I'm the best of all of them? Not really. There are people who are way better than me in my team and also for the rest of the world. You are speaking to me because you've heard about me. Why did you heard about me? Because I did something on social media. Maybe I spoke in front of a camera or I went on similar podcasts with other people. That in a way built my personal branding, because of which you know me and we are doing one more podcast out here, right? So I think that's important because that unlocks many things. It's the same with teams as well. Some team might be really good, but if no one knows about them, it's equivalent to they not existing, right? So, yep, I at least see it that way.
How much benefit do you see of this personal brand in, let's say, in a job environment? Do you think like a good Instagram following can lead you to get a better package or more respect in a job? Does it tangibly equate to that at all?
Not always. Well, it of course depends on what you are doing in Instagram or well, it's not just about, one. Okay, if I were to take my example, well, I don't know. No one has explicitly told me, but I can guess and tell you. What I feel is when companies approach me, or even when my present employer approached me, they had known about me. They had heard about me. It's not that, one person applies and they're like, okay, who's this person? Let's look into his resume. Let's understand where this person has worked. That didn't have to go through because they might have already known my name. They might have already seen me doing something somewhere, delivering some talk or, maybe writing a case study or making a video or something. So that initial first impression is slightly elated. I won't say that it's super positive, you come and we give you the job. That's not the case, but it is slightly more elated. It's not absolutely neutral. It is slightly above neutral is what I would say. That certainly gives you some advantage. That one advantage is you would see a lot of people approaching you for a job, right? Like I said, when you do something, that's how people know that, this person knows about it. Today, if I just go and keep tweeting about user research, every single day, I'm tweeting about user research, or if I see another tweet, I go and reply with my opinion and all, people will start believing that I am a great user researcher. Even if I have, say, no experience in research or I have no knowledge of research. It's how people perceive you. So what will happen is, if recruiters and companies start seeing my activity, they will start thinking about me the moment they hear the word user research. And if they have any opening, they will try and approach me and say, hey, would you want to join our company? So, that way opportunities are created. Now, finally, of course, I will have to perform in the interviews and all to get the job. That's there. But it certainly gives you an edge is what I feel.
Was this at the back of your mind when you started content creation? What's the core reason? Why do you create content? Why do you teach? Why do you do workshops?
Like I said, it's because I loved to network with people. That's why I started doing it, So I still remember, I got my first talk. My first design talk was in 2016. It was an event by HasGeek. HasGeek is a fairly popular, group of people here in Bangalore who conduct all these things. So it was an event called Meta Refresh. It's a big event, by the way, like nice facilities, big stage, and then, you go there and deliver a talk. It was like a really big thing. I never thought, I would ever get to do that. But I got a chance to speak there. They approached me because they had seen some of my animation works on Dribble, right? And also before that, it's actually a two-tiered thing. So there's a very senior design person, Sunit Singh. You might have heard about him. So he's one of the pioneers of Indian design, I would say. One of the early great designers. Everyone looks up to him. So he had reached out to me for a probable employment in one company that he was working for back then because he had seen some of my work on Dribble and Medium. Right. So he knew that this guy knows motion design and that's why he wanted to hire me. And then I chose not to because I had just switched my job. But then the relationship kind of remained. So apparently he had told HasGeek that this person is into motion design. And that's how I got to deliver my first talk. So just because I had posted some animations on the internet, I got a chance to speak about it in a big platform. And that actually started everything. Once I did that and I saw that my talk was well received, and people actually liked the way I use analogies and examples to drive something seemingly difficult as motion design and how I could simplify. That gave me the confidence that, hey, maybe this technique works. Then, one thing led to another. As people saw me, they saw this video floating on YouTube and other internet platforms where I was talking. They realized that, okay, this guy talks about design, right? So again, it became a perception. So whenever there was any event, people would reach out to me. Hey, we have an event. Would you come and talk? So like that, one thing led to another. And within no time, I think as of today, I have delivered over 80 to 90 talks. I think I've lost count, And yeah, and after lockdown, online thing was even more, because there are no restrictions. You can simply plan one day ahead, and then you just open up a live session like this, and you're speaking, and you have audience from all over the world, because there are no boundaries. So yeah, again, that's how I started. When I started, I never thought that, this would build my personal brand. In fact, I didn't even know that there was a phrase called personal brand. I simply did this because, I liked it. I like to go to the stage and talk to people and interact with people. And over time, it finally translated into podcasts like this, my YouTube channel, everything. But now I feel, maybe it's my responsibility. Many people look up to me and they say that, okay, when's your next video coming? Because we really want to learn this topic from you. Are you going to make a video on that? So I feel I'm socially responsible to give back and cater to the needs of some of those people.
I've always found it difficult to tell people exactly like what we are doing. So there's this. I'm forgetting the name of the person who said this, but very simple line: do things, tell people. Do things, tell people. Do things, tell people. That's how you generate more opportunities. And I've always struggled at this, and I also have opinions on founders building in public and how it helps in hiring a lot. I know people who. So let's take singers, for example. I have a lot of friends who are songwriters. Beautiful songwriters, but they write songs, that's it. Then I know songwriters who would write one song, do crazy marketing around that song, great PR, talk about how they wrote that song, how the idea came about, and end up talking about it for months. And then they would end up getting more opportunities because it was marketed well. It was like they ended up telling people. Why do you think people have a hard time telling other people what they do? Especially me, I think this is a question more for me than anybody else. Like now I've started building in public. Now I've started telling people, okay, we have amassed, we have created so much content for so many, big companies, but people still think, there are people who message me and say, oh, what do you do? And that really shocks me that people don't even know what I do, right? So how do you cultivate this culture within yourself ki, acha, theek hai, now I'll do this and I have to tell people in detail that this is what I've done?
Yeah, I think the one and main reason why people refrain from showing their work is that constant feeling that you're not good enough. It's because you feel that what you've done is no way close to what someone else is doing, and it's too bad. I will just keep it to my own self. I think that's a feeling which stops majority of the people into showing off their work. Yes, there are maybe a very small group of people who are like, you know what, I don't care. I don't want that life. I'm doing this. I'm satisfied. I don't care showing about. But for majority of the people, they actually want to show, but they're too scared or they are too embarrassed to show their work because they think it's not good enough, right? One thing is, just go ahead and show. It could be about that. It's going to be bad. Just believe that it's going to be bad. Believe that people are going to shower you with a lot of unwanted criticism and all, but still go ahead and do it. Because once you overcome it, you will realize that it's never as bad as you might have thought, right? You would actually see people being happy with your work, people saying good things about your work, and that'll give you more confidence, which will urge you to share one more thing. So that's how, it's the first things, first few set of things I would say, when you start sharing, it gets much easier, right? And another thing I would say is about what people think about themselves. Some people are really good, but they don't have the faith in their own self, and they end up saying that, okay, I'm not good enough. And someone else, for some other people, it could be completely reverse. I remember a while back you asked me this question, right? Am I a specialist or a generalist? And I told you that I'm a generalist because I believe that I have a lot more to learn before I can call myself a specialist. Whereas there could be some other people who are probably at my level, or maybe even less than that, who might still call themselves specialist. Because, maybe their scale is different or their perception about themselves is different, right? So that's a thing inside them. So someone who believes, have faith in their own self or maybe even shameless to go ahead and show whatever they do, actually have a better chance of succeeding in case whatever they show is fairly good enough, right? Because it will give them confidence the moment they start getting that appreciation. It happened to me as well. Like, dribble, like I said, right, a while back I was very active with dribble, but these days I'm not doing it. When I started, of course everyone starts with zero. I had seen some of my colleagues at housing who were like doing crazy stuff. They would put some animation and they would get hundreds and thousands of likes, and people from all over the world would come and praise, comment on their work. I wanted to get that kind of praise as well, because that's a very good validation that you're doing something good, right? You're doing something good. You're somebody, right? So I started creating animations. Like I created 1 or 2 of them. Maybe I wasn't very happy. I would go and see side by side, what is missing in mine, which is present in Rahul's animation or Rama's animation, right? I would go and see those tiny details and try and adopt them into mine. And after a while, when I feel that, okay, this is maybe at that level, I went ahead and posted with a lot of fear. I thought that, okay, this is going to die. No one's going to like it. No one's going to view it. But that actually did well. It got some, I think 70, 80 likes or something, which is good for a beginner, right? That gave me the confidence that, I can also do it. Maybe I am not as good as them, but I'm close to them. Maybe, if I put a little more effort, I can actually do better. So that's how it started. You see that thing on dribble, if I had not put it, I would never grow on dribble. I would never get discovered by Suneet. I would never get referred to speak for Meta Refresh, and I would never do all those things what I'm doing beyond my work. So just show your work. Just show your work.
Do you freelance right now?
Right now, no. I don't have the time. But yeah, I have done my fair share of freelance in the past, when I was relatively free from my work and every other thing that I do. And as of now, no.
How do you price? And I know this is a very generic question, but I still... So I see a lot of videos on this is how you calculate your hourly rate, and they ask people to come up with a number that your expenses, and this is what I want to earn this month. Why I see that flawed is, for example, I think for me, I want to earn 10 lakhs a month. Now, this number is so relative to everybody because this really depends upon your upbringing. What if you're made to believe that 3 lakhs is a huge sum of money, and then you're made to believe that 3 lakhs is nothing, so I want 20 lakhs. And then you divide and you come up with an hourly rate. So how do you bridge that gap between what you're actually worth, which is also very relative because this is creativity we are speaking, and what do you think you're worth? How do you bridge this gap?
Well, there's always this your real value versus your perceived value. So if you're just talking about your worth, the money that you get paid, it can be manipulated a lot by your perceived value, because it is possible to make your perceived value more than your real value, and that could help you maybe charge more than what you probably deserve. Now, this might sound a little negative, but I don't mean to cheat people out there. All I'm saying is, there's always a level. It's about understanding where you are. Like if you ask me, my first freelance, which I did in college, I didn't quote anything at all. I had no idea how much should even be paid for. My first project was, by the way, to design the label of a shampoo bottle, right? I didn't know like how much would a designer charge for designing the label of a shampoo. I had no clue. I was given 600 rupees for that, right? 600 rupees was a lot for me. I could go and have coffee in CCD, which was inside our campus, so many times with my friends, right? So that's how I saw it. It was good. But then this prices started increasing. Still, I was not quoting anything, right? The first time I think when I quoted was when I was in my first design job. I had no idea. One company had reached out to me seeing my work on Dribble. I literally asked one of my colleagues, how much should I charge? He said, $30 mang le per ghante ka. He said that. I went ahead and said the same, right? When I said that, the client agreed in just one go. I said 30 per hour. They said, yes, let's do it. Now that made me realize that maybe, I could have asked for 40. Maybe I could have asked for a little more, right? So, so the next when someone reached out, I increased it a little bit and said, okay, let's try 37. So I tried 37. I thought, okay, they agreed to 37 as well, right? So then when you see this upward trend, you start getting more confidence in yourself. And by the time also you have done a bit of your work and then you go read up and you see that there are freelancers who are earning $100, $200 per hour. But then the question is, are you really worth it? So, it's that little thing you keep increasing. And then when, you see that it's getting accepted without any discussions, you realize that, yeah, maybe, you can actually stretch. So next time someone comes, you take that leap of faith. Okay, let us increase it by another $15 this time. Maybe I'll come back by 2 or 3 if the bargain. So I think that's how I did. Honestly, I don't know if it's right or wrong. But what I feel is, at the end, over time, when you have done this for some time, a couple of years at least, you should know the worth of your time, the value of your time. Now, finding the value of your time could be based on what you make. Like you have said that, there is a certain amount of money you make monthly, right? Based on that, I work every day, 8 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. You find your hourly rate, whatever it is, right? That you get from your day's job. And I also feel that when you're doing this calculation, you should also look into the money that you should getting paid. Maybe someone's earning 10 lakh per annum, right? But if you feel like, what, I deserve 15. So maybe when you're doing this calculation, start with 15 and not with 10. And then whatever hourly rate you come up with, I usually recommend you multiply it by 1.5 or 2 and then give that the rate. The reason why you multiply it, because in a full-time job that we do, there are many other benefits that you get. PF and medical benefits and blah, blah, and everything. But for a consultation job, there's nothing like that. And they are short term. So, for short term, you would have to charge a certain premium because it's not going to last for long, right? So yeah, when someone asks me, I usually say this: find your hourly rate, multiply it by 1.5 or 2, and then just go ahead and quote.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So, Saptarshi, we are almost at the end of the podcast and we do this really fun rapid fire round. This is just to...
I was expecting, when is the rapid fire going to come?
It's just, it's our way to just have some fun, because I think there were some serious questions. I think now it's our time to just relax. Okay, 3.
Yes, we are ready to go.
2, 1. One startup's design in India that inspires you. Cred. One that irritates you.
The other day I saw Make My Trip. I have a recency bias, okay? Because just a few days back I saw something, that just hurt my eyes. Sorry.
What's your guilty pleasure? No, as an individual, not as a designer.
Watching old 90s Bollywood movies, the embarrassing ones.
That's okay. What do you love about content creation?
The satisfaction of the end result. Unmatchable.
What do you hate about design?
What I hate about design? Documentation.
Favorite moment at Swiggy in the last 3 years?
Favorite moment in Swiggy in the last 3 years? Once, recently, it was a just funny conversation. Our CEO said that he dreamt of me talking about in some design context, okay? It was a funny thing, but then, okay, I at least come in my CEO's dreams. I think that was a funny moment, and a happy one too.
Can you point out like one moment that changed your life?
One moment that changed my life. Yeah, in my first job, I think after 2 weeks or so, I was summoned by my manager and managers and so on, and I was given very bad feedback. First design job, very bad feedback. It was almost saying that if you do not pull your socks up, we'll have to ask you to go because you're still in probation, right? Your work is no way up to the standards of what we are building out here and all. I think that was a turning point because that evolved a new me in my own self. And that's when I started hustling. Before that, it was just the joy of cracking your dream job and then, all honeymoon period. But then that was the reality check. It made me realize that there's nothing as dream job. Your journey starts here, right? So that's a time, when I started working my ass off and it's still going on. I think it's still going on. That's what I would say that was one of the turning points in my career, at least.
3 favorite books or movies, whichever you prefer.
I'll tell you about books. I'll tell you 2 books and maybe 1 movie, right? First book is The Atomic Habits. Number 2 is The Power of Habits, because I kind of relate this to my profession. So I love these 2 books a lot and I recommend these to everyone. Let me tell you 1 movie as well. I really love the Batman series by Christopher Nolan. In fact, Christopher Nolan is my favorite director. So I like almost all his movies, but the Batman series is really good. I feel every dialogue is a one-liner, which is tweet-worthy. Yeah.
That's something. I mean, I usually look at things there's this YouTube channel as well called Every Frame a Painting. There are some videos and movies which if you pause any frame, it's spectacular. You could just
Okay.
put up a picture. I mean, there are music videos which are so spectacular to look at that you would pause any second, take a screenshot, post it on like a Tumblr or a Pinterest, and people would like it would be aesthetic or beautiful or nice to look at.
I remember one liner from Batman Begins, I guess, which I hold very closely. One is, it's a dialogue which says, it's not what you're within, it's what you do defines you. So I think I take that very seriously, right? So, yeah,
Wow.
Sorry, what was your question?
Since we were talking about habits a lot and growing in incremental paces, what's that one design habit which you have inculcated and has helped you like a lot?
Well, it's not a design habit, but this one thing helps me a lot. It's the art of listening, I would say. I think I got a lot better at listening than what I was maybe a couple of years back. That changes a lot of things. When you actually hear people's opinion, your users or someone briefing you, when you hear it really well and probably even take notes along with it, it changes a lot. So I would say listening.
What's Saptarshi's life mantra?
Remember what we started with? I'm a simple human, right? So anything which just caters to them by me being simple and me being human, I think that's my mantra. But yeah,
I was expecting the Batman dialogue to be spoken again. It's not what you are within, it's what you do that defines you, is what I was expecting. But this is good as well.
yeah, I think that's about being simple. I would say, what you do, yeah, it will define yourself. For that you don't have to be someone extraordinary, right? Your work will, of course, speak on your behalf. But at the end, I feel I'm a very simple person. You should see my daily life, man. There's nothing, there's nothing fancy about it. Although many people think I have a very fancy life. I don't, right? You'll be surprised. A cup of tea and Parle-G makes me happy. So yeah, I would still stick to simple human.
Wow. It was really nice talking to you, man. I mean, good knowing you beyond the confines of a YouTube screen and an Instagram post. Felt good to connect with you more than just like a content creator or somebody working in some part of India. It was really nice talking. Learned a lot along the way. Small little things that I'm taking away. One is to tell everybody more and post more and probably do more case studies. Then so I think that's my major takeaway from the podcast. Thank you so much for coming and sparing your time for this.
Thanks for inviting me once again. It was really great talking to you and knowing you, right? It's always good to connect with fellow content creators. And I really love the conversation. It wasn't like some other podcasts I had been part with, which is more like a Q&A. It's like a prepared thing, question, answer, then question 2, answer. It was a continued conversation. I mean, you sound like a very experienced podcaster and never felt like, a session that we're doing. It was just like two friends talking. Really loved it.
Always love to, take the conversation on that note. I feel that like that's the difference between I feel an interview or a podcast. This podcast is my cheat sheet to talk to people like you and to just learn from the community.